Welcome to the Inside Tack Show, brought to you by our friends at Boat International. We are fresh off the water after a busy weekend of racing here in Barcelona for the preliminary regatta. That result, though, didn't count. What comes next does, because on Thursday the racing will start in earnest, where points will mean prizes. Welcome to Ben, who's sat next to me, and to our COO Dave Endean. We're going to get their thoughts in just a moment, but first let's take you back and have a look at what just happened out on the water.
INEOS Britannia allowed to enter in 2 minutes. They'll be just a little bit behind that, but let it get on.
Really hard these 2 minutes for the cyclers. I mean, maximum amount of manoeuvre.
Close to the line. They look like they're going to get it bang on, and we are a go.
Really nice game there by INEOS Britannia on that right-hand side of the course. Quarter, so we'll get a real indication of how close the boats are being sailed here. They have a use a little match here and try and lock INEOS Britannia to windward here. They're slow.
It's a challenge. These pre-starts, we're up against the best guys out there, and we're practicing. We're trying different things. The comms with Dylan are going really well. He's doing a fantastic job for the team. So we'll be all right. We'll take a lot from that. We'll go away, have a bit of a huddle with Ian Williams, our start coach, and come back fighting.
Tack out, board down.
INEOS deciding to tack away there before they come off the foils. I think you will now re-accelerate, and we have got an absolute cracking race on our hands.
INEOS Britannia around the top mark.
Bow here.
Time and heading upwind for the finish in race 15.
Oh, wobble there, INEOS Britannia.
INEOS Britannia are having a good day on Saturday here in Barcelona in the Louis Vuitton preliminary regatta. It'll be a point, but there'll be more to celebrate. They have been slick today.
So that was the first time we got to try out what we've got and also see what the others have. Ben, overall, how did you rate the team's performance this weekend?
Yeah, look, I think we would have liked to have won more races, of course, but there was plenty of positives and learnings to take away from the 4 days of racing. And the trick is now, as you said, we start racing again the round robins on Thursday. We've got to get through that, and then looking obviously to progress through to the semi-finals and beyond. And we've talked a lot about how the teams develop through this competition, and certainly I feel like we're a team that's got a huge amount on the table still that we can improve in terms of the performance of the boat, how we sail the boat and the manoeuvres and so on. So yeah, the team are really in a good place in terms of feeling that motivation, and we've got a few days now to prepare for the round robins.
As always, Dave, at the beginning of these competitions, all eyes are on the sailing team. All eyes are focused on what they're doing on the boat. But what about operationally? Because we know what it takes to get these boats on the water. How did the shore team go in terms of this weekend from an operational standpoint? Was everything as slick as it could be?
Yeah, I think similar to the sailing team, there's areas we can brush up on and tweak as we go. And that was for us operationally, that was a big part of last week. For us, it's about making sure that the team have the boat in great condition and get as much time on the water as they can. And during the racing period, that's sort of locked down a little bit, so being really efficient is important for us. And I think the team did a really good job.
I mean, what the shore team go through over the course of a cup campaign is pretty astounding for everyone. Sort of not everyone necessarily sees it, but certainly within the team we see it. And it's incredible the sort of shifts they're putting in. What does it take to put Britannia on the race course every day?
Yeah, it's a huge effort. We seldomly turn the boat off because the night shift are they're in there doing all their checks from that day of racing, making sure nothing's broken, and if there are things that we need to be working on, we fix those. Then we check all of that, and then the morning team come in at sort of 6 a.m. and make sure all the systems are operating as they should be before rollout. So yeah, it's almost 24/7 during racing.
Even just watching that video played back, which we did, which sort of just showed a highlight sequence of the prelim regattas, you two are sort of commentating over the pictures, sort of looking at what you're seeing as if it's sort of a mini debrief of sorts. Let's just be a bit more specific about what did happen out on the water. What are the real positives that we can take from the action that we were involved in, Ben?
Well, I think our performance actually improved quite a lot, and there were some areas there, I think upwind performance tacking that we felt like perhaps against some of the other teams we were lacking a bit of pace, and certainly it felt like we're able to find another gear, but still more to come on that. The starts, we saw how critical the pre-starts are. Some really good moments for us there. Also a few silly little mistakes creeping in, which are sort of part of getting used to the tactical app, the positioning of the boat. So pretty positive about being able to iron those out. I mean, one of the great things from getting more racing under our belts was the relationship with Dylan and I. You know, first time that we've raced together as a helming partnership, and I have to say Dylan did a great job. The communication between the four people sort of flying or steering the boat was really positive throughout the event, and a good base to build from.
Can we just focus on the starts for a moment? Because you both have been involved in multiple America's Cup campaigns, and it feels like the boat that gets the best pre-start and therefore then the best start and therefore gets the mark first, it's really hard to come back from that. How much focus, Dave, do you think will need to be spent in the coming days and weeks, hopefully, on making sure that that's as tight as it can be?
Yeah, I think and the best thing that we have up our sleeve there is practice. So that's why this regatta last week, you can try and practice against yourself and the chase boat and the ghost boats all you like, and the sim to an extent. But having that time on the water last week was critical with real conditions, a real opponent, and that's where you start to figure out whether the things you've been practicing are the right places to look for performance. And obviously, match racing is often a race to the top mark, and if you can be first to a top mark, there's probably a much better chance that you'll win the race. So that's always our aim, is to get to the top mark first and drive from there.
What does it look like afterwards in a debrief? You mentioned going away in that VT and chatting to Ian Williams, your start coach. What happens in those conversations other than can we just start first, please? I mean, how do you actually sort of work out the game plan?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time, like Dave says. We try and do a little bit on the water using the chase boat. It's very, very difficult. We use a lot of simulation time, which is actually really useful in terms of positioning different set plays. I mentioned Ian Williams, 7-time match race world champion, so huge amount of experience. He's been great since he's been with the team now for the last 4 or 5 months. And so we literally review the starts that we've had. Some of the issues are obvious, some not so obvious. There's a lot of nuances there. Don't want to go into too much detail at this level, but needless to say, we put a lot of effort into it, and we realise, as all the other teams do, the importance of it. And I think it's going to be fascinating how those pre-starts develop over the coming weeks.
Dave, you alluded to the fact that what we have up our sleeve, of course, is practice, and that we need to be practicing in a match environment as well. This is always the dilemma, though, isn't it? Going into a cup campaign is time spent in the shed with the boat to optimise performance of the boat versus time spent at the sailors being able to get out there and sail the boat so that they can optimise it to its nth degree. How do you choose between the two of you? How does that actually work out? How do you sit down and go, right, this is what we're doing and this is why? And sort of, obviously, you both have to get behind that decision.
Yeah, I think it is a challenge.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
And I think we all have performance at the forefront of our mind. And maybe one of the things we're guilty of this last couple of weeks, building up to the prelim rounds, is we were chasing some more details. And we probably didn't have the boat in a lockdown configuration that the guys can spend enough time with preparing. So, it's a constant trade-off, but this is part of the game. Design time early on, and now sailing time with development time.
For people that are just sort of joining us on this America's Cup journey, because it's a little bit like an Olympics campaign, everyone goes away for 4 years, works really, really hard, and then suddenly there's a load of press and attention on this thing just as the event starts to unfold. So for people that are just joining us and just sort of embarking on this adventure, this challenge of a lifetime with us, what's gone into the design, the build, the development work of making Britannia as brilliant as she can be out there?
Well, luckily we don't track it, but I'd say it's in the hundreds of thousands of hours of design and manufacturing time, from the sort of birth of the boat down in Hythe and Carrington boats all the way through to the boat we roll out every day. It'd be frightening to think about the amount of hours that go in to get it there, but it's a massive task.
It's huge, isn't it? It's really hard to explain to people just how much effort goes into it. You've got tens of thousands of components. It's like a Formula 1 car times 10.
I guess also it's
crazy.
a prototype of its own, isn't it? Because this class rule was established last America's Cup, but you're incrementally looking for those performance gains all of the time. So that these little tweaks could lead to huge percentage advantages, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Every detail is gone through with a tooth comb to really try and eke out as much performance as you possibly can. And it's actually amazing how close I know we're in the second generation of this class, and in some cases for some teams this is the third AC75 that they built, but in many ways it's remarkable that the performance is as close as it is, really, when you look at the variables, the potential. And we say this a lot as well, that I think the performance of the teams will improve probably by 5%, maybe some teams more than that over the coming weeks, as people just get more time on the water. They're refining their setup, the setup of the boat when it leaves the dock, also the setup of the boat through the race, and how the sailors are operating it to really maximise performance.
We were lucky enough this weekend to host the Bertrands, and John Bertrand, who's the winner of the 83 Cup campaign, wrestled it off America after 132 years with Australia too, and with that particular campaign was telling me that, just like in his day, the learning curves and the performance gains are vertical. They're almost like this. So it is a development race, isn't it, Dave?
100%. And one of the things that stood out to me with what John was saying was that link, even back in 83, the link of the sailing team to come back and then talk to the shore-based designers, and maybe back then there was 4 or 5 of them as opposed to 40 or 50. But that link of just, this is what it felt like, this is what we learned, and what does that mean in your world? So that relationship is pretty important.
How is Britannia performing at this stage of the competition? Because it is really, really early days. And as John also, to quote him again, also did mention to me that, the boat that is performing as well right now in the prelim doesn't always get to win at the end game. So where are we at on that particular journey? How much more has she got, do you think, to come?
Yeah, I think there's plenty there. Probably some of the observers would look at the recent result and say, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? But no, I genuinely do believe that there's a huge amount of untapped potential in the boat, perhaps more so than some of the other teams. If you look at the Kiwis and Italians in particular, to a certain extent the Americans, they look very polished compared with, say, our performance and maybe the French. Who are a very young team and have had little time in the boat. So I know certainly from a sailing team perspective, with more time in the boat, we can iron out a lot of the issues that we saw through the preliminary event. And like Dave says, we've got plenty there to work on in terms of the setup of the boat to derive more performance from it. So yeah, there's all to play for.
Obviously, it's going to convert into real value in the next regatta. This is when the serious stuff happens, and this is when it really matters to get points on the board. From the performance of the boat, what do you hope for in that sort of tranche of the next few days, sort of starting on Thursday? What do you really want to get out of that bunch of racing?
Yeah, at this stage it's really fine-tuning, so I don't think for any of the teams there's really scope. It may be for the Kiwis in terms of getting through, obviously they're in the final, to make some bigger configuration changes. I'd be surprised, it might be, but I'd be surprised if any of the teams make any massive configuration changes at this stage. So it's really about fine-tuning. Particular area of focus is always going to be the foils, because we know most of the performance derived from the foils, but also in the sails, the rig. There are other areas which might are very small, sound insignificant, but they all actually contribute to the efficiency of the performance of the boat. So that's really what we're working on now, and then obviously fine-tuning the sailing performance, making sure that our manoeuvres are as crisp as possible, and obviously getting out of the blocks on the starts in good shape.
Okay, that's the boat pretty much well uncovered. Let's talk about the roles on board Britannia, but first there's this.
So welcome on board the deck mock-up of RB3. So fundamentally, the AC75 from the outside on a long shot will look much the same as it did in Auckland, but the deck layout, because of the cyclors and the reduction of crew, is going to look wildly different when we get those fantastic onboard shots. So one of the biggest things you'll notice on RB3 versus RB2 that we race in Auckland is that the helmsman / tactician is going to be in the most forward cockpit with a clear view forwards of the bow and able to match race perfectly. And everything in their cockpit has got to be perfectly designed for them. So everything is bespoke to those two guys, and making sure this thing is as comfortable as possible for them to sail, but also as functional as it can be for them to sail, so they can match race and read the wind and look at the other boat and get RB3 going as fast as possible. So moving one spot further back from the helm and our two pods in the middle of the boat. And for me, the biggest change in this cup cycle is we're no longer grinding with our arms, we're now cycling with our legs. So the two pods in the middle of the boat, two on the starboard side and two on the port side, are going to house our 4 cyclists that are going to power the boat. Now remember, everything below the waterline is powered by batteries, and all the power that the cycles produce is going to move the sails. So this has been a big challenge for us at INEOS Britannia, fitting big 6 foot plus human beings, everyone's between 90 and 100 kilos, so big lumps of human, into boxes, keeping them out of the way of the wind and making sure it's a good environment for them to spit out lots of watts throughout a 20-25 minute America's Cup race. So I'm in the most aft cockpit now, and with this iteration of the America's Cup, as I've said, we've gone from 11 crew down to 8. So there's more jobs for the individual to take on, and I'm in a cockpit where our flight controller and trimmer will sit. So these guys back here are in a world where when they're on the leeward side of the boat, they're looking at the foil, looking at the displays and flying the boat perfectly over the water. And when they're on the windward side of the boat, they're in charge of the sail shapes and trimming the sails to make the boat go as fast as possible. We're in the second generation of an AC-75, and though it might look the same from the outside, things have changed beyond belief. We're in an aero world that we've never experienced in the America's Cup.
I mean, when you watch it like that, and when you see it on the water, I mean, do you ever so often, both of you, just have to pinch yourselves with where we're at right now with this America's Cup edition? Because it's not sailing, it's flying. I mean, these boats are extraordinary. What's being asked and requested of the people on board is, again, another level up. I mean, when you first embarked on your sailing career, did you ever think you'd been hooning around the harbour here in Barcelona on something that looked like that?
No, of course not. And I think Dave, sure the same for Dave, and Dave and I raced in the version 5 boats of the America's Cup, you know, back in 2007 in Valencia, the last time we raced in conventional, if you want to call it conventional, displacement boats, and you know, it's a whole world apart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really? And the performance that you get, you know, you would have seen touching it on the breezier day early on in the preliminary round, but if we get a 20 knot day, the performance is just staggering, particularly upwind. The performance that these boats can achieve it's unbelievable that a yacht can do that level of performance.
It is extraordinary when you take people out on the water as well. We had some guests in hospitality this weekend who we took out on the water, and they just couldn't believe what they were seeing, especially when these boats at speed whip past you, because they make no noise. The noise is eerily silent, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, and I think if you want to watch the racing, the best place is in front of a TV, but you have to see one of these things in real life fly by you, because it's breathtaking. And you know, I've been around boats my whole life, and I still try and go out in the water every now and then, because it's just an amazing sight. Still, for me, you know, and I've been involved with 3 of these things now, so yeah, it's something else for sure.
But what you're also asking of the people on board is pretty extraordinary. I mean, in this campaign, everyone's gone for it this time round, having Prada done it last edition, but you now have your twin helm scenario. Just describe to people what that means and how that breaks down in terms of delegation of responsibility, because that to me is the epitome of trust. That is absolutely needing to have each other's backs, considering what you're doing out there. Just break down what the twin helms do and how you sort of own those areas of responsibility.
Yeah, it is challenging. It takes a lot of trust and really good communications, like you say. I mean, effectively, when you're on one tack, the windward side of the yacht is normally helming, and the leeward side is doing other things, depending on which team we're talking about. But you're slightly less loaded when you're on the leeward side of the yacht, so you're looking at the wind, you're looking at the tactical app, you're looking at the opposition, you're trying to feed back performance, a myriad of different things that you're trying to communicate. But you're also blind pretty much from one side of the boat to the other. I mean, we have windows in the sails or cameras. Some teams have both. So that helps in somewhat to understand where the opposition are. They also come up in the tactical app where the opposition boat is. But still, the communication that's required to talk about where the other yacht is, if they're on the other side of you, to talk about the manoeuvres that are coming up, and the choreography that is required, not just from the helmsman and the trimmers, but from the whole crew, because the cyclors are also putting down a massive amount of wattage power, but they also get involved with certain functions on the manoeuvres. So again, the choreography for all 8 people on the boat's massive.
You were trying to explain it to our daughter the other day, who was busy accusing Ben that he's only just steering the boat in one direction. What's the big deal? And he was explaining that it's like patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time with what you're doing. I mean that's obviously the most crude version of it, but it is a little like that, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, it's certainly multitasking to the extreme. It's incredibly absorbing mentally, clearly physically. We're not even moving from side to side, so physically, other than a bit of load in the steering wheel, it's not really that much of a challenge, but mentally it's hugely absorbing, and it's a great challenge. It's a really great challenge when you can link it up and really get the performance out of the boat and get the manoeuvres going in terms of team sport and really feeling like everyone's in sync and contributing well. That's a really powerful moment.
And you and Dylan, like you say, this is a new partnership for you guys and for the team. So what were your learnings from the weekend of racing that we've just had, and how do you guys go away and improve that and get it as slick as you can?
Well, I think the attributes of Dylan are really that he's very open. He's really focused on deriving, as we all are, deriving as much performance from the boat as possible, and being open about how we can do that either on the water or off the water is really important for all of us. And that communication as well, I guess, coming from double-handed Olympic sailing, where again that communication with your partner in that respect is absolutely critical. That helps, I think, in terms of his understanding in a race scenario to get the best out of everyone, make sure the communication is really clear and concise, and so he's fitted in very well.
Dave, the cyclors, I mean, what's being asked of them is just extraordinary. I saw a couple of them come off the water yesterday, and one of them, whose first competition it was at this level, Harry, picked his head up and there was just blood streaming down his face. I mean, it's extreme, isn't it, what they're being asked to do? Yeah,
it is intense. I mean, the sort of ambient conditions aside, with the fact that we're in Barcelona and it's 32 degrees outside, they've got to spend 20 to 25 minutes at sort of 300 to 500 watts, which is a lot of power for someone to maintain, but they start that with a 2-minute sprint. So they're up to 1,000 watts before they've even crossed the start line, and then they've got to try and catch their breath for the next 20 to 25 minutes. With the output that they have, it's they're definitely in the hurt locker in those little boxes. And important that they also sort of, obviously you've talked about the heat here and everything else. I mean, the preparation for them must be as important as what they're doing on the water to make sure they're capable and ready to do that. I mean, we see them go out onto the dock with these big ice vests on to try and bring down their core temperature a little before they start. Freddie said to me the other day, I get on the boat shivering. Yeah. And within moments, they're where they expect to be. Yeah, and I mean, we've spent months with them inside with, paper suits on to try and get their core temperature up so they get familiar with operating at that sort of high body temperature. So, yeah, a lot of prep's gone in the last 6 to 12 months for those guys. So moving everything forward, we've got the Challenger Series, Louis Vuitton Challenger Series to look forward to next, where things do matter. The final yesterday was really exciting. Some of the racing not as exciting, some of the racing really exciting, which you kind of expect at this stage of the competition. But how do you expect things to ramp up now that it matters? Well, like I said, I expect some of the teams could have been holding a few things back, some not. What are they likely to be holding back, if anything? Any number of things. I mean, I don't think in any significant way, but just subtle things that potentially they may have been holding back in terms of how they sail the boat or
how they manoeuvre the boat and so on. Certainly in between the races you saw a lot of teams going away practicing other manoeuvres that they may have figured out in the racing that wasn't particularly a strength. For example, our situation with the Kiwis where we made a mess of the double tack was an area that we then went away and spent I think 90 minutes practicing just that manoeuvre. So there'll be things like that are coming forwards, that there'll be trends as always. There are trends that you can see one team's excelling at something and all the other teams then go chasing after that as well. We've seen also that slightly dependent on the conditions, some teams are favouring certain conditions more than others. But as you said, we're starting to race for keeps, so it's about ironing out any little mistakes, optimising the performance and making sure you're getting some points on the board.
So next up, Dave, we're going to go against the other challengers that are obviously competing for their spot, as we are, to meet the defenders in the Cup proper. But we're also going to be meeting the defender of the Cup as well, Team New Zealand. How did that happen?
Yeah, that was a negotiation very early on in this iteration for the Cup, where they wanted to make sure that they were exposed to some of the racing that the challengers have. And you know, there's been plenty of arguments about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but being the defender, they have some control over the rules, so they made sure they got that one in there. And it just means that they're exposed to this next couple of round robins of racing and helps keep them sharp on their sailing skills.
I suppose on the other side you'll get to see them in anger too, so you can start to gauge where they're at in the situation. What about,
sorry, it's an important point, but significantly their points don't count.
No.
Which is important, because otherwise, not saying they would do this, but there would be a potential that the results could end up getting manipulated as to who's going through to the semi-finals or not.
So what does the round robin look like? Just break that down for us.
Well, so one round robin is essentially what we've just done in the prelim regatta, where everyone will race each team once. But we've got 2 round robins in the next 3 weeks, and the sort of combination of those scores will go through to work out who goes through to the semi-finals.
Okay, and at this stage, I know you said, Ben, that some teams might be holding a little bit back here and there and trying out different things. Is there a team that sort of is really standing out to you at the minute? I mean, normally at this stage of the competition, it's hard to say that, but is there somebody you're all thinking, okay, they've kind of got a pretty slick operation going down there?
Well, I think I mentioned before, the Kiwis and the Italians in particular, and kind of in a way, it's when you look at the performance in recent Cups of those 2 teams, particularly last Cup, going strong, and so they've been impressive in terms of their performance. American Magic have had some good races, had a few issues as well, and then as I talked about, Alinghi and the French team, new teams back into the Cup for Alinghi, having won the Cup twice but been away for quite a while, and just trying to get to grips with the new class of boats. So, yeah, I'd say the Kiwis and the Italians are the ones that we're chasing after at the moment with the targets on their back.
Okay, good to know. Keep an eye on them. Dave, in about 3 days' time, or exactly 3 days' time, we will be back on the dock, and our dock out music will be playing loudly, and we'll be waving the guys back out to race action. What happens between then and now, as far as what's going on in the shed is concerned, and then out on the water practice? Yeah,
we've just done 7 days on the trot with the boat, which is a reasonable length of time. So today and tomorrow is a quick day and a half of maintenance. We've got some measurement tasks. We need to make sure that the boat is still compliant with the rules, so we'll do those checks with the measurement committee. The guys have their official weigh-in tomorrow, and then we'll sneak out in the afternoons to just do a little more shakedown. The sailing team will have figured out the things they want to look at on the water, and then just give them some practice time each afternoon, and the final touches basically.
So no dinner tonight, so that makes for a seriously grumpy husband. Fantastic news.
All right, I'm okay. I'm good on my weight.
Are you? All right.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just sure.
Conveniently, that I did. I may have overachieved.
Oh, you have. Excellent.
Okay.
Tell me something I don't know. All right, we're going to let you guys go and crack on and get on with what you need to do, because we're not too far away, of course, from the start of the Louis Vuitton Challenger Series. It all gets underway on Thursday. That's when you'll see us next, dockside, cheering these guys out onto the racecourse ahead of their challenge of a lifetime.
Britain has a renowned maritime history, but one victory has yet to be celebrated. the America's Cup. Now, a new British chapter is being written. A team of innovators, sailors and engineers have come together to take on the ultimate challenge. The America's Cup is a place where innovation and progression meets tradition, and the spirit of exploration and competition comes alive. It starts with an idea, a sketch on a page, but soon becomes something much greater. Years of painstaking design, engineering, and testing lead to the creation of a racing machine. Every fiber, every join, and every sail has been meticulously crafted. The team's focus and determination is unwavering. Driven by the goal of winning the oldest trophy in international sport. Britannia is more than just a sailing vessel. It's a symbol of grit and rigor. It's the embodiment of British engineering, passion, and the relentless pursuit of victory. The 37th America's Cup is more than a race. It's a quest for glory, a chance to create history and create new pathways.